Hey, what's up everybody, Jack Many Trades back here again with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the main pieces of equipment that keeps this channel going, and of course that is the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and in conjunction with that, the DJI RS3 Pro. So what I'm going to be showing you guys in today's video is how to use the DJI RS3 Pro, how to mount the iPhone to it, how to balance it, how to get the best possible results using the gimbal. I know a lot of people will not show you these types of things because that's not really what the RS3 Pro is made for. But for those of you who may be like myself, where you plan to have a DSLR in the future for doing real estate video, photography, other things like that, you may actually find it best to invest in something a little bit higher end like the RS3 Pro, the RS3, or the RS3 Mini, where they are built for DSLR cameras, but they can also support iPhones for your filmmaking needs at the moment. And then when you grow up, so to speak, in the film experience, so that way when you grow up in your filming experience, you can still use the equipment that you already have rather than having to buy it again. I know things like the DJI OM6 are really appealing because they're at a pretty low price point to get in on, and they're purpose-built for using an iPhone, but where they sort of fall short is in iPhone accessories. So as you know, I am a huge fan of Moment products. I've been using them for a couple of months now, and they really do enhance your videography and your photography, I feel, because you're able to get different focal lengths, you're able to use things like ND filters to bring your shutter speed down to a normal level for shooting cinematic video, and in all actuality, it gets you pretty close to that DSLR look that everybody always wants. You know, so even though all of my videos are shot on iPhone, or in this case, this is actually shot on an iPad with a 60mm Moment lens on it, the fact of the matter is that camera technology in these devices has gotten really good, and even though, yeah, it's just a smartphone, it does have really high quality glass, really high quality lenses, and you can get very high quality video out of them. And if an iPhone is all that you have, that's nothing to be ashamed of, but you definitely want to invest in something that will stabilize your video a little bit better than just hand holding. Hand holding an iPhone, it can be done, it's fine, but in the end, when you're watching it on a big screen, you're going to see those jitters from you holding it. It's not going to be a very smooth experience, and that's sort of one of the downfalls of iPhone, is that it's a really, really light device, so balancing it and stabilizing it yourself in your hand is very difficult. So that's why gimbals still have a place, and especially if you're going to be using Moment lenses or other things like that, your iPhone will quickly become too heavy for something like a Osmo Mobile 6 or any other handheld smartphone gimbal, and so you're going to want to go for a professional gimbal. So what I use is the RS3 Pro. That may be overkill for you, and that is okay, but you know, I wanted to have the best possible gimbal for the future, so that way when I do actually get into having a DSLR, I already have everything that I need. But if you are on a budget, I would say that the RS3 Mini would be a really great option for you. But again, let's just get straight into the video, and I'll show you guys how to set this all up for using with your iPhone for filmmaking. So let's go. Here we are with the DJI RS3 Pro, of course. This is what it comes in. It's a very nice sort of hard shell bag. It's got sort of a fabric outer, but it is, like I said, fairly hard shell. It will protect your device very well. So that is nice that it includes this. I did get the Pro combo as well. So this is the more expensive version, you can just get the gimbal itself and the standard accessories, but I chose to get all of the accessories that come with this. Again, like I said, I'm thinking about having this for a long time, and for using it when I eventually upgrade to a DSLR camera, I'll already have all of this equipment, so that's why I chose to go with this. But if you are just getting started, you don't have to go this crazy, obviously. I will be throwing links to the DJI RS3 Pro, the RS3, and the RS3 Mini down in the description for you, so that way you can choose whatever gimbal you think might fit you best. I'll also leave a link to the OM6 down below if you don't feel like you're going to need this sort of power to run your iPhone rig. Like I said, this really comes in handy when you are using lots of moment lenses and filters, since the glass on those can get really, really heavy, and it'll be extremely difficult to actually get good quality video out of an OM6. But let's get straight into this. So first up here we have screws and Allen keys. These are for mounting all the hardware. We also have a gear strip for your focus motor. We have the extender for mounting the focus motor to the system. We also have some cables. These are HDMI and USB-C cables. We also have some strap mounts and other things like that so that we can keep your heavy lenses supported properly. That's basically all that comes in the first part. Then we have our Raven Eye. This is used for wireless video transmission to an iPhone for your camera. So this isn't useful if you're using an iPhone, but it will be if you use a DSLR. This is your focus motor. And of course we have our mounted system, which is a quick release plate. We also have our briefcase handle. You also have a handle which has an included battery, and your tripod, which is fully metal and quarter 20 mount. We also have an Ulanzi phone clamp mounted onto this quick release plate, so that way you can put your iPhone onto the system. The Ulanzi clamp is not included, but you can get it separately. I'll leave links down in the description below. And lastly, in here we also have the phone clamp. This can be mounted onto the proprietary side mount on the RS3 Pro, either on the left or the right hand side, and you can put your iPhone in portrait or landscape mode to help control your camera. On the back here we have the RS3 Pro in its own compartment. As you can see, it has a pretty large 1.5-inch screen, and it has all of your switches, toggles, and dial, and your triggers. You also have this whole thing. It's made out of carbon fiber and has very heavy motors capable of holding up to a 10-pound camera setup. Alright, so here we have everything that we need to get started. And so to assemble the RS3 Pro, all you need to do is just take the device, take the handle, and then align the pins with the little gold nodes right there, and just push it in, and then you can just turn this dial here to the lock position, and that will just make sure that everything is locked in place. Then you can take your included tripod and just screw it into the quarter 20 hole on the bottom. And now we can unfold the legs, and now we have the device completely set up and ready to go. So for the purposes of today's video, like I had said, we are going to be using the iPhone 14 Pro Max. One thing that you will want to do when you first get this set up is you will want to activate it. So activating it just requires you to download the DJI Ronin app. So that is going to be this one right here. And you will just want to make sure that you connect your device when you turn it on and get everything set up with your DJI account, so that way it is fully active. You will need to do this at some point. I think it's within 5 days or something like that of your first boot up of the device. So that's just something to be aware of. All right, so now to the part of getting this set up with the iPhone. What you're going to want to do is to manually unlock and relock the motors in their sort of standard configuration. So what we're going to do here is use the motor lock here on the back push it to the unlock position. Now it's free floating, and so now we just want to turn this 90 degrees and lock it in place there, and then do the same thing for this mount here. Now we have it in a standard configuration and are ready to continue. So then we just want to take our quick release base plate here and slide it in the top. You'll hear a click when it's in place. Now it is on the rail system, and so now we can just use this dial to roll it forward and backward. With the iPhone, generally speaking, you want to have this as far forward as possible. Since the iPhone is not super long, all of the weight is centered pretty much, so you want to just keep this all the way out. And we can just lock this in place temporarily, and now it will not move if we rotate this. So now that is taken care of. Then all we want to do is take our quick release plate here and screw on whatever mount it is that you choose to get for your iPhone. Like I said, this is a pretty cheap one from Ulanzi. It is just a simple clamp, and you'll want to unscrew it, and we can just put our iPhone in there. Make sure that the iPhone is centered, otherwise things can be a little bit tricky as far as balancing, so you just kind of want to make sure that you are keeping things in the center, and as with everything, don't over tighten. You don't want to strip any screws or anything, but here is the basic setup here with just the iPhone and no lenses or anything at the moment. All you want to do is just take this base plate and line it up with the cutouts on your adjustable base plate, and you just slide it in. This has a sort of safety lock feature where once it's in, it can't really slide out unless you allow it to. So that is pretty nice to see. If you do want to remove your iPhone after you're done, there is this little button here on the back. All you need to do is just slide it until it hits the end, push in this button, and now you can remove it completely. So we'll just put this right back on and use this lever here to lock it in place. Now it's not going to move. As I had said before, you can just use the iPhone by itself with this, but it's overkill by a lot. If you are just going to be using the iPhone itself and you're not going to be using any lenses, I would highly recommend to you guys to pick up the DJI OM6. So I will just show you guys very quickly what this looks like. I will leave a card to appear up there showing you guys a video review of this product, but this is what you're going to want if you are just running an iPhone with no lenses, filters, or anything else. If you're going to be getting into more cinematography, more professional jobs, you're definitely going to want to invest in some filters, lenses, and other things like that for your iPhone, and that's really where this comes in. Let's add our lens to the system. So what we're going to be going with is the Moment 133X anamorphic, and we're going to be adding a couple of filters here. So first off, we're going to be using the 67mm filter mount, and we're just going to attach the anamorphic adapter to that, and we'll remove the lens cover for the anamorphic and simply slide it through. So now we have it on the filter mount. Now we can add whatever filters we want to use. So today I'm just going to be using a pretty standard combination that I go with if I'm shooting outside, which is the Cinebloom 10%. And again, since the iPhone is a fixed aperture, you're going to want to get something like this, which is the Moment ND filter. This is a variable ND. This goes from 2 to 5 stops, which is generally all that you'll need in most situations. but I do also have a 6-9 stop in case I want to do long exposure photography or other things like that. But we can just screw this directly on top of the 10% Cinebloom, and then we have our stack. So all that we need to do now is just remove the little back cover, and now we can just attach this to the main camera of the iPhone, which is on the bottom here. And now we just get into the part that makes this a little bit more of an involved process than something like the OM6. The OM6 has auto balancing, and there's not really any way to get it to balance perfectly. This is a lot more complicated, but you can get a really, really good balance out of it. So that's one big difference between the two. So first off, what we're going to want to do is to unlock this motor here. When you have this motor here unlocked, the first thing you want to do is get this part here balanced, so the height adjustment. So if you push it all the way down to the bottom, it's going to basically be putting a lot of stress downward. So you can really feel it. If you lift this up, it starts to get very heavy. It really wants to sit down here. That's not what you want. You want it to feel pretty much weightless at a point, and so we're just going to kind of play with this a little bit, and eventually you'll get to a position like right about here where it doesn't really move around too much. And then, all right, so what you're going to want to do is to adjust it to a position where whenever you move it forward or backward, it will stay exactly where you leave it. So as you can see right here, if I leave it in any position, it will stay. It's not going to move around. And so now we know that this axis is fully balanced. And so all that we needed to do there was basically just set this height to a proper level and then set our forward to backward position on the rail system. And now we have that totally balanced, so we can just lock this axis off. And now we need to balance the sort of tilt axis here. And so it's already pretty much balanced for me, but it may not be for you. And so if you are not balanced in this axis, all you're going to want to do is to simply lift up on this little lever here, and then you can just push in and out the arm until you get it to be like this. So again, you want it to be completely weightless, so to speak, in that if you leave it in any position, it will stay, and it's not going to just return to center. Now we move on to the last portion of balancing, which is the base here. So the lock for the base is right here. We just want to pull it out. You'll hear a click, and now this is freely rotating. This one is a little bit more tricky than the others to get balanced, just because of how you have to hold it. So we want to hold it at a 90-degree angle, and as you can see, we are pretty unbalanced. It's just sort of rolling around all over the place. Since it's tending to push downward, we want to make it go inward. And so we're just going to push forward a little bit here, and we are almost there. We just need to pull back just a little bit. You can make it a little bit easier on yourself by turning it upright. That will relieve the tension and make it a little bit easier to make your adjustments. Now, what I find with the iPhone is that the pan axis here can be a little bit tricky to get balanced, and it generally doesn't work out too well. Again, I think it's just because it's a light setup, and it's a setup that doesn't really extend out too far. So it can be kind of difficult to find the right balance. So now that we have our gimbal basically balanced, we can go ahead and turn it on. Do make sure that you never turn this gimbal on unless you have something like a camera on it. Otherwise, you could damage the motors, and that would be a big problem. This thing is fairly expensive, so you do want to take care of it. All right, and so here is another one of the features that I think really makes this worth having is the auto lock feature. So with these professional gimbals, something that can be a little bit challenging is transporting them from place to place. You know, they have big heavy motors, there's a lot of moving parts, and there are axis locks for each axis. And so before, with other gimbals, you would have to basically turn off the gimbal in such a way that you were sure that the camera wasn't going to tilt or roll or do anything like that and damage the motors. Then you also had to manually lock everything and make sure that it was secure before you went ahead to move on to the next location. What's nice about this particular setup is that all you need to do to move on to the next setup is just turn off the gimbal. So if we push and hold the power button here, I have it set to auto lock, which is basically the default. So it will lock in this sort of half position where it's not fully closed, but it's mostly closed. This is so that way if you have on your roll axis here, if you have it down really far because you have a very heavy setup, it's not going to hit into the pan motor at all. But of course, if you did want to just sort of have this as a full compact package, you could just unlock the motor and put it into the full 90 degrees rather than the half tilt. But this makes this a lot easier to handle when you're moving from site to site, and it's a really good selling feature. I think the other thing that's nice is that when you're ready to start filming again, all you need to do is just push and hold the power button. That wakes it up, unlocks all the motors, and puts it back into a neutral position, and you're ready to start filming straight away. You have a button here which has a green light. This will show you basically the balance of all of your axes. If anything is really off, instead of being green, this will be yellow or red. But as you can see, most everything is pretty much perfect, which is good. You want to make sure that everything is solid before you actually start filming. Otherwise, you'll get unnecessary shakes and other things like that, and it's not going to be a very good experience for you. If you are just setting up a brand new setup that you've never used before, what you're going to want to do is push this button here. This is your calibration, so you can go with normal or super smooth, and this will basically just tell the motors exactly how much they need to use in each of the axes, roll, tilt, and pan, in order to keep your phone or your camera steady. So we're just going to go with the normal calibration here. We'll push start. Now, if you hear grinding noises or other things like that, that is completely normal and nothing to be worried about. Like I said, it's just sort of going through and trying to test itself and make sure that all of the motors are working properly and that it'll give you the best results possible. So on this main menu here, we have our tracking speed, so you can go slow, medium, or fast, or you can do a custom mode. I have mine on slow, but medium is also fine, so we'll just put it on medium. Right now, we are in pan follow mode, so if you touch on that and you're in pan follow mode, it's just going to tell you that you should use the side scrolling to actually select your mode. Pan follow is nice because if you turn left or turn right, it's not going to change your horizon. It's just going to pan left to right and sort of keep things steady. So that works well for me in most cases, but if you are going to want to go ahead and do some more advanced shots, like say simulating a crane or something, you may want to put it into pan tilt follow. So if you're turning left and right, it'll follow, and if you lean back or push forward, it will turn your camera forward or backward. So that can be useful in certain situations, but again, it's one of those situations where you just want to be aware of what all of these modes do before you go ahead and start getting into a professional situation. When you're in a professional situation, you really want to have all of the features and functionality down so you don't waste time. And so our last mode that we have down here is FPV mode. So FPV mode means that all of the motors are unlocked by default. So you have your pan, tilt, and roll axes all moving at once. This can be a pretty interesting mode to use. And with this one, we can actually access this mode menu. So we have FPV, we have 3D roll 360, and we also have portrait mode, and we can do a custom mode. So what's really cool about this is that you can basically have your camera oriented in portrait if you would like to shoot that way. You will have to be holding your gimbal basically straight on. So that's where the briefcase handle here can come in really handy. And then the 3D roll 360, this is a very stylized type of shot. It's not something that you want to use all the time, and it's something that can be easily overdone. But in the right situations, this can be a pretty cool thing to use, since it will give you that sort of spinning, rolling shot. It's sort of a dreamy feel, I think. So those are the main settings there. If we swipe here to the right, we can set up time-lapse, track, and panorama. These features you can use with the iPhone, but you know, they're not going to be controlling your camera at all. It's just basically saying to the gimbal that you should do one motion and then another motion. So then on the left side, if you swipe over to the left, you can connect directly to your camera, and you can have your video signal coming through here so that we have a small viewfinder. Again, with an iPhone, you're not going to be able to use that for FPV. For the pin follow mode, it's a medium speed, but you can also do fast, custom, slow. But for the joystick, generally speaking, you're trying to get your framing, so medium or fast is probably good. Joystick smoothness, this is basically how long it takes for the gimbal to stop moving, so you can have it very low, medium, or high, so that'll basically put more of a buffer. You also have changes for your dial speed, so if you're rolling your dial, how fast does that move? You can change what the function of the dial is, so you can have pan, tilt, roll. You can also change ISO, aperture, shutter, focus, focus motor. The only thing that you need to know about this is that with an iPhone, again, you're not dealing with lenses really that are capable of doing focus. So those are mostly features that you're not going to really be using with an iPhone, but those are features you can take advantage of with a DSLR. And now if we swipe down, here we have our screen lock feature. We have the audio feature, so we can turn the audio on or off. We also have our settings, but again, in general, your experience with this is going to be a little bit limited if you're using an iPhone, since it's not really purpose-built for using an iPhone. Like I said, if you really just care about getting smooth video, this is kind of why you might want to use it with an iPhone. So I'm just going to throw up some sample video here that you guys can take a look at of video shot using this gimbal, and you can sort of decide for yourself if you think that it looks good. Alright, so here is just some example footage using my iPhone 14 Pro Max mounted on top of the RS3 Pro and using some moment filters and lenses. As you can see, you can get really stable footage. This is, in my opinion, pretty high quality. Even at low light, I'm actually really impressed with how well the iPhone handles. But like I said, what's nice about this setup is that even if you graduate from using an iPhone to using a real DSLR camera, you'll still be able to use this gimbal, And if you get the Pro combo, you'll get all of the tools and accessories that you would want, like the focus motor and other things like that. So I feel like it's a pretty good value as long as you know that you're going to continue to be doing stuff like this. And what's nice is that, as you can see here, it'll even meld in with drone footage, so that way everything looks super stable and professional. So with that being said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video and got a lot out of it. I know a lot of people don't take the time to show you guys how an iPhone would work with something like this, so I figured I would give you guys that. So with that being said, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your friends, and I will catch you guys in the next one.